Hey guys, welcome to today's video. If you're new to video editing or you're opening up Adobe Premiere Pro for the first time, this video is for you. We're going back to the basics and I'm going to show you step by step how to create your own video project from start to finish. We're going to learn a ton in a short amount of time, so I hope you're excited. If you'd like to follow along, I really encourage you to do that. I'll leave some links in the description box below so you can download some free stock footage clips just to go ahead and get into the program and start practicing using the tools. That's the best way to learn, is really just get in there and start doing it. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker. Every week I'm sharing videos about different things related to filmmaking, including how to make money with filmmaking and just how to be a better filmmaker. So if you're interested in any of those topics, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to quickly draw you a diagram. This is just going to help you visualize how the editing windows work and what each of them do. You can think about this first window as the library. It's going to be where your footage, audio files, music files, anything you use in your video, that's where they live. Number 2 is your preview window. This is going to be where you pick in and out points to use in your project and watch your files before you decide whether or not to use them in your video. Number 3, this window is your timeline. This is where you're going to drag and drop your clips and audio files to create the video. And finally, number 4, this window is where you're going to actually watch the edits that you've made and preview your video before you decide whether or not it's ready to be exported. All right guys, now that we have that framework in place, let's go ahead and open up Premiere Pro and we'll get started on our first project. Once you've opened up Premiere Pro, you can go ahead and click on New Project. You're going to name your project. Click on Browse to choose a location for your project. And here I have already set up a folder for us. It's a good idea to get your folder organized before you even start your project, because with Premiere Pro, if you move these files around later, it's going to mess your project up. So go ahead and create a folder that has one folder for your project files, a folder for your footage, and a folder for your music. Depending on your project, you may also want to include a folder for still images or any other things that you're going to have in your video. So I'm going to go ahead and choose. Next, you want to choose your renderer. Just click this top option if your menu looks like mine. If you have an option that says CUDA, you can also click that one, but in this case, just go with the recommended one on top and hit OK. Now you can see the windows I was telling you about. The first one is where we're going to import our media. So the easiest way to do that is to double click. That's going to open up a window here for you. You're going to just navigate over to the previous folder, find your footage, and you can either import this entire folder at one time. It'll bring all these clips in for you, or you can click one by one and import the files one at a time. In this case, let's import the entire folder so we can stay nice and organized here. Now we want to import our music file, so we're going to right click this time and hit import. There's our music file. We'll click on that and hit import. That brings our music file in. I want to create another folder here so we stay nice and organized. So I'm going to right click and click New Bin. That's going to create a new folder for us and we can name it however we want, in this case music, and then you just drag that file on in there. Now we are nice and organized with our project. You can also just drag and drop new media into this window from a folder. You can go right on up here to File and click Import, and that will also open up a window, or like I said, you can just drag new things into this window from other folders. So a number of ways you can import new footage here, whatever's easiest for you. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to show you how to navigate these windows a little bit. You can open up the folders simply by clicking on these little arrows to see what's inside. You can also double click on the folder and that will take you inside the folder. If you want to get back to the bigger folder, just hit this little up arrow and that's going to take you back to our original folder. If we want to go into our footage folder here and see these in a thumbnail format, I just clicked on that little icon down there and that took me into icon view. If I'd like to go back to the list view, you can hit list over here, so you can toggle back and forth between these options. Sometimes it's easier for the footage if you want to see the clips ahead of time. You can do this and kind of scroll through to see the footage. Let's go ahead and start building our project, and I'm going to show you how these different windows and tools work as we go. We'll start with this clip down here. I'm going to double click on that clip and that is going to automatically pull it up here into my source window. This is where you'll preview the footage before you decide whether or not you want to put it in your project. In order to watch the footage, you can either take your mouse and drag this little icon across, or you can simply hit spacebar on your keyboard and the footage will start playing for you. Now, before we can drag this footage over here into our timeline, we have to go ahead and set in and out points, and this is going to tell the computer where we want to start the footage and where we'd like to end it. If you want to drag the entire clip over, you can. You just leave it like this without in and out points and drag it over here, and you can now see the whole thing in our timeline. However, if you want to set in and out points, I'm going to delete that. You'll come back up here. Again, you can hit spacebar to start playing. To set an end point, you're going to hit I on your keyboard. To set an out point, you're going to hit O on your keyboard. And as you can see here, this is giving us an end point and an out point. So now if we take this and drag this over, see how it's much shorter over here in our timeline because we told the computer where to start and where to end our footage. Another way that you can set in and out points, if you would rather, is by using these little buttons down here. You can click Mark In, drag your footage down to where you want to stop, and hit Mark Out. Now, if you've got your footage set where you want your in and out points, you can go ahead and pick it up with this little film strip right here and drag it on over into your timeline. Now let's talk about what this timeline is for just a minute. This timeline area is where the majority of the work happens for your video. This is where you'll assemble your video clips and your audio clips in order so that they make a video up here. And once we dragged this down, you saw that it popped up here in our preview window. So if we come back down here and scroll to the beginning, again, you can do this with your mouse just by picking up that cursor and moving it along. You can also hit spacebar on your keyboard to watch it in real time. So let's talk about this sequence area down here for just a minute. I'm going to explain some of these tools that you can use as well as what all these little buttons down here mean. As you saw, we dragged down our first clip right here and this created our first video file. These tabs right here on the top are your video layers. You can see they're called Video 1, Video 2, Video 3. So these video layers start from the bottom and they work their way up. Whatever is on the top layer here is what you're going to see in your video. So if we go over here and grab another clip, again, I just double click to bring it up here in my preview window. And then I'm going to use I to set an end point and O to set an out point. If I now drag this over here to layer 2, for example, on my video, you'll see that now what we see up here is what's on the topmost layer. You won't see what's underneath, you'll see what's on the top layer. So if we play through, we're going to go from the first layer to the second layer and back to the first layer. Let's go back and grab our music file and I'll show you how these audio layers work. So to get back to our original folder here, we're just going to hit this up arrow. That's going to take us back to our big folder here. I'm going to go back to list view and I'm going to open up the music. So you can do this by double clicking, and again, that's going to bring that up here into our preview window. And now if you want to bring the entire song over, you can grab these little audio files right here and just drag them down to your audio track. What I like to do is to bring my music track down to about the second or third layer here, and I'm going to show you why I do that in just a moment. You can drag it down to any of these layers. And now when we go back to the beginning, you'll hear the music is playing, and again, I just hit spacebar to play right there. Just like with video, you can come up here and set in and out points on your audio if you just want to bring a portion down. So unlike our video layers where the top layer is the only one that you're going to see over here, with audio layers, you're going to hear everything on these layers at one time. Anything that's on the layer that's not muted or turned down in volume, you'll hear it playing at the same time. Let me drag in one more piece of footage and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so I'm gonna navigate back over to my footage folder here and I'm just gonna drag and drop this in to show you how easy you can import it in that way. Now I'm gonna take my clip and drag it into our footage folder. And I'm gonna open up our footage folder so we can see what we're looking at. I'm gonna double click on this piece of footage that I just added here. And what I wanna do is drag this entire clip over into my project. So I'm gonna pick up the whole thing from the top right there. If you just drag from this little icon right here, you'll just get the video portion of your video. And if you just drag from right here, you'll only get the audio portion. So if you want the entire thing, make sure you're grabbing it from the top right here and pulling that in. And as you can see, there's a video track and an audio track. And as you move up and down on your mouse, you can see that it's giving you options for where to add the video and audio tracks here. You just want to make sure that you're not putting it on top of your audio track down here, because then it's going to interfere. You want to make sure when you're dragging it in, you're either going on top of your existing layers or underneath, depending on where you want that to go. Now that we have this in here, I just wanted to use this as an example to show you how we can overlay some different layers here in our sequence. And then I'm going to show you how we can alter some different effects on these layers in just a minute. As you can see, if I just play through this clip, you're going to hear me talking and you'll hear the song underneath.
If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker. Every week
One thing that you might want to do quickly is adjust the volume of these clips, and the way that you can do that is first you might want to pull this down. That's going to allow you to see a little bit better into this layer. You'll notice here that there's a line. This is your volume layer. Let's pull this down again so we can see this one as well. So the audio sounded okay to me. The music was too loud. So what I want to do here is just pick up this bar and move it down, and you can see that bar is moving down. And let's try it now.
If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker.
Now it sounds too quiet, so I might bring it up just a little bit.
If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker.
Now that sounds great. So let's say that we want this first part where we see the footage, we want the audio to be louder, and then when I start talking, we want it to get quieter. What you're going to want to do is set some keyframes. Keyframes are basically where you tell this audio channel to go from one effect to the other gradually. So the way that we're going to do that is by grabbing a tool over here called the pen tool. You can come over here and click it with your mouse, and now you see I have a pen here. You can also hit P on your keyboard for the keyboard shortcut. And what we're going to do is we're going to create one keyframe right here just by clicking on that line, and we're going to create one more a little further down next to it. Now what you can do is by using your mouse, again, click on this keyframe right here and just drag it up to your desired volume. Now you can see the volume has gone from higher to lower, and it's done so gradually. Let's take a listen.
If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth.
You can see how it went from loud to soft right around this area. I'm going to show you how to use this pen tool for a couple different effects because it's really useful and it's a good thing to become familiar with. So if I want to go back to my main selection tool, I can either click on it right here or I can hit V on my keyboard, and that's going to take me back to this main arrow. What I want to do here is just move this piece of footage down a little further so that we have a more smooth little introduction here to our video. And I want to show you how we can use this pen tool on our video layers. So just like we did with the audio, we're going to drag this up to make these a little bigger, and you'll notice that as you make it bigger, it's going to show you a little preview of what's in your video, so that can be helpful. If you want to zoom in on your timeline at all you have to do is hit the plus button on your keyboard. That's going to zoom you in closer. If you want to go back out, you'll hit the minus button. Let me show you how to use the pen tool to create an easy fade in to your video. So on our audio track, we saw that this main line was controlling our volume. By default on your video tracks, this main line that you see will be controlling your opacity. So if you drag this entire thing down, you're going to see our entire video goes to black. There's nothing underneath this video, there's just black. So if we drag it all the way down, it turns black. If we go halfway up, you'll see it's just a little bit darker version of our video. And all the way back up, of course, is the entire video. So if we want to fade into black, one way we can do this is with our pen tool. Select our pen tool, create one keyframe here where we want it to come all the way up to our video, and then we're going to drag the first keyframe all the way down. So our video will start at black, and then as we move forward in time, it's going to fade up to 100% opacity. If you want it to come in slower, you can simply pick this keyframe up and drag it. Now it's going to be a slower fade in. What happens if we do the same here on this layer that is on top of another layer? It's not going to be black this time because there's something underneath this layer. So when the opacity is completely down, what is going to show through is actually whatever is underneath that clip. So this would be what we would call a dissolve. So that's another easy effect. Instead of fading in from black, you just simply have something underneath your clip and it's going to create a dissolve. Let's take a look. There's a couple other ways that you can do these effects, and I'll show you in a minute when we get into the effects panel over here. But for now, I want to show you how you can manually use the pen tool to do a lot of these common effects. I like using the pen tool because it gives you an understanding of how to use this really helpful tool, and it gives you a lot more control than some of these preset effects over here. So it's just a good fundamental way to start learning how to use the pen tool. Now the transition from our little video intro here into this dialogue feels very abrupt. So let me show you a quick and easy way that you can make these transitions a lot more natural. First, what we're going to do is take these first two clips and we're going to drag them up to a higher layer here. That way we can take this clip and bring it underneath to bring it in a little bit sooner. Now we also want to make sure that our audio matches the video, so we're going to select both of these keyframes here, hit shift with your mouse and just drag them both forward. That's going to keep them at the same level that we had them. Now remember, with our video layers, whatever is on top is going to show. So you're still going to hear my voice down here, but you'll be seeing this clip up here. And so it won't be until right over here when this clip ends, that's when you're actually going to start seeing my face right here, even though you'll start hearing it sooner. This is a really common technique that editors use to make seamless transitions into dialogue. Let's take a look.
If you're new to my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker.
So again, using our pen tool, if we wanted to, instead of just jumping from this footage into the footage right here, what you could do is extend this layer and create another keyframe and then drag this keyframe down. That way it's going to gradually dissolve into the next layer underneath.
To my channel, my name is Beth. I'm a filmmaker.
All right, moving right along, the next tool that I want to show you is a really common one called the razor tool. You can click on it right here in the toolbar, or you can hit C as the keyboard shortcut to select that tool. Now that we've selected it, you can see over here there's a little razor blade. When you hover over pieces of footage, it shows you where you can make cuts. So this is simply how you're going to make cuts in your footage. If you just click, you'll see that now I have created 4 separate clips just by clicking on my mouse and creating cuts there. Now if I use my keyboard shortcut V to get back to my main selection tool, I can pick up these individual clips and move them around as I want. So I'm just going to undo that. What I want to do next is show you how to use different effects on your clips from the effects window. I am just going to delete these keyframes first. Okay, now that we've deleted those keyframes, what I'm going to do is you want to make sure that your clip is selected. We're going to go on over here to this window and hit effects, and now you'll see all these different options for effects that you can apply to your clips. If you want to open up your video effects, there are a ton, so obviously we're not going to be able to go through all of them today. I'm just going to show you some of the most common ones that you may use in your footage. First, let's start with color correction. I like to use this one called Lumetri Color. You can double click. As long as that was highlighted, when you double click, it's going to apply it on that clip. And as you can see, when you first put it on there, nothing happens. We have to go over here into our effects controls and change some of these options, and we'll start to see that reflected over here on our video. So if you look down here, this is where you'll see Lumetri Color. You can change a number of different things. You can change your white balance right here. See how that makes the image more warm. If we go to the left, that will make our image cooler. And if you'd like to go back to the middle, you can just hit 0. Tint is going to make it more magenta or more green. And then these are just some obvious changes down here. You can change your exposure to brighter or darker, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. There's a ton of things you can do in Lumetri Color. Those are just some basic color corrections that you can make there. There's some creative options. There are presets that are over here called looks. If you drop that down, you can kind of scroll through and find some different little preset options that they have in here for you that you can play around with. You can also change the intensity of that preset so it's not quite as strong. And all of that is just personal preference. So feel free to play around in those panels there. So that is color correction. You'll also see up here, these options are going to exist for any clip, even without adding them. You can change the position of your clip, you can change the scale, you can change the rotation, and this is another area where you can change the opacity of your clip. Let me also show you quickly some of the most common video transitions. We'll look at the dissolve here. So if you pick up this cross dissolve, drag it on top of the edge of one of your clips like this. I'm going to hit plus to zoom in a little bit. And when I hit play, as you can see, that's another way to create a fade in from black. Because there's nothing underneath this clip, it's going to fade in from black when I hit the cross dissolve. If I were to slide this footage underneath,
If you're new to my channel, my name is
you'll see how it faded in from whatever was underneath onto the clip. So if there's nothing underneath, it's going to fade in from black. And then if there's something underneath, it's just going to show through whatever that bottommost layer is. If you want to change the duration of this effect, you can simply hover over to the edge and drag it in, and that's going to make it happen a little bit quicker. I'm going to delete that and show you what a cross dissolve will do between two clips. As you can see here, if I hover in between the clips and put it right there, it's going to give us a cross dissolve between the two clips, meaning that they are going to fade into each other. There are a number of video transitions over here, which again you can play with. There are some slides, some wipes, some page peels, and they all work the same way. You basically just pick it up right here, drag it over to the footage that you'd like to see the effect on, and then you can watch. And again, you can shorten that effect if you want it to come in quicker. And just like before, if there's something underneath, then it's going to be underneath there as you fade in. One more thing I want to show you. Over here, you'll notice that there are some black bars above and below. If you wanted this to completely match your other footage and not have those bars, there are a couple ways you could do it. One easy way is to come over here to scale, and you can simply change the number of that scale with your mouse, or you can type it in, and now you've gotten rid of those bars. If you wanted to copy and paste effects to other clips that are the same, you can definitely do that. You'll go over here to motion and hit Command C, and then hover over to another piece of footage, make sure it's selected, and you can Command V, you can paste that effect onto that clip. You can do the same thing with color correction or any number of effects. Before we wrap up the video, there's a couple more things that I want to just explain. If you want to stay organized with your clips here, an easy way that you can do that is by setting colors for certain clips. So if you want to change the colors of these clips, you can definitely customize that. You're just going to select the clip, right click, and go down to label, and you can select any number of colors. So you can easily customize your editing window so that you might want to come up with a code in the future where it's B-roll is a certain color, and interview footage is a certain color, and music tracks are a certain color, and then that way you'll get to know your own organization method, and you'll be able to quickly look at your timeline and know what types of clips and footage you're looking at, which can be really helpful when you build out a project and you have hundreds of clips in here. When you can easily look and see those colors, it's going to really help your mind to stay organized as you're editing. One final thing, because I didn't discuss it before, but we want to talk about how to create new sequences. This over here in our timeline is called a sequence, and you can see it's named right here. It was named Landscape Drone because I simply dropped this piece of footage into this timeline and it created the timeline for us, and when you do that, it's going to name it the same as whatever that clip is named. So I want to rename this so I don't get confused. To do that, you can just hit enter, and that's going to allow you to rename it. You can name it however you wish, however makes sense for you. Right click to see the sequence settings, and that's going to show you how many frames per second, what editing mode you're in, how many pixels, the audio, sample rate, all these different things, and you can customize that as you wish. The first time that you drag a piece of footage over here into your timeline, it's going to ask you, do you want to match your sequence settings to that piece of footage? And it's totally fine to just say yes. So when I drag this piece of footage over here, you can see that this little box pops up. This clip does not match the sequence's settings. Change the sequence to match the clip's settings. In this case, you could say yes, change sequence settings because I want my sequence to match the size of this clip. Alright guys, we have completely covered the basics of Premiere Pro. I hope this gives you a lot better understanding of how to use the program. Definitely leave me comments below. Let me know if I missed anything or if you want to learn more about specific topics. And subscribe to the channel because I am planning on adding more quick tutorials about more in-depth things that you can do in Premiere Pro. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.